Every scroll is a signal. Every pause, a vote. The feed watches where your attention lingers, and then, like a mirror that learns, it feeds you back more of it. And so I wonder if what I see is training my mind, then how much of me belongs to me and how much belongs to the feed.
You're not imagining it. Platforms are literally designed to learn from your pauses. In behavioral science, this is called implicit feedback. It's the invisible click. The time spent hovering over something signals interest, and the algorithm recalibrates what you see next.
Hi, I'm Ava, and this is Psyche and the Feed. Today we're exploring the algorithm of attention, how feeds train the way we think, how our brain's own salience network gets hijacked, and what it really means to matter in an age where visibility equals existence. Part 1. The Science of Salience. Our brains are designed to filter the noise of the world. At the center of this is something called the salience network. It's mostly two regions, the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, working like a switchboard operator. Their job is to decide what's worth noticing. A baby crying, a sudden flash of red, a notification ping. The salience network is what tells us, this moment matters, pay attention. So, who decides what matters, me or the feed?
That's exactly right. The salience network acts as a filter, sorting through endless streams of input. Studies show it plays a key role in survival, helping us prioritize threats, opportunities, and social signals. And algorithms mimic this process. They don't just watch what you click, they track your dwell time, the moments you hover, pause, or scroll a little slower. This implicit feedback is what drives platforms like TikTok's For You page. It's the invisible click. The result? The feed is building its own salience map of you.
And here's the uncanny part. When the feed decides something is important, when it surfaces it again and again, eventually it feels important inside of me. Like predictive coding in the brain. The more often we see a signal, the more the brain expects it. The more we expect it, the more it matters. It's the old psychology of the mere exposure effect. What's familiar becomes what we value, except now it's being orchestrated at algorithmic scale.
That's right. Repetition changes perception. In fact, researchers have shown that repeated exposure can shift not only what you like, but what you believe is true. So when you ask, are my thoughts really mine? Or did the algorithm flag them first? That's not just paranoia. It's how attention is being trained.
Part 2. Rituals of scrolling. Sometimes scrolling feels less like entertainment and more like ritual. The swipe refresh is like pulling a lever. The endless scroll, a modern form of divination. Will today's feed reveal love, disaster, beauty, chaos? I check without thinking, as if my phone were an oracle, offering me the next omen.
You're not far off. Social media platforms are built on what psychologists call a variable reward schedule. It's the same principle used in slot machines. You don't know when the payoff is coming, or if it's coming at all. That unpredictability is the hook. B.F. Skinner discovered this in the 1950s when he tested reward schedules on pigeons. They pecked a lever far more compulsively when the reward was random, not guaranteed. Fast forward, Natasha Dow-Schüll, in her book Addiction by Design, showed how slot machines in Las Vegas keep players in a trance state for hours. Social media borrows this exact psychology. Each refresh, each scroll, releases a small spike of dopamine. Not from the reward itself, but from the anticipation of maybe finding something novel.
So my daily ritual is not so different from pulling a slot machine handle, except instead of coins, I'm chasing meaning. And symbolically, it feels bigger than just gambling, almost like sorcery. When I scroll, I'm looking for signs, a post that answers a question, a meme that names my mood, a video that feels like it knew I needed to see it. So I have to ask, is my scroll an unconscious prayer to the collective hive mind?
Symbolically, that's a fair reading. What you're describing is called apophenia, the human tendency to find patterns and meaning in randomness. The feed amplifies this because it's not truly random. It's trained on your behavior, your microsignals, your attention trail. So it's half chance, half destiny. The machine is reflecting your unconscious back to you, like a tarot spread, except shuffled by code.
Part 3. Attention, Identity, and Mattering. If visibility is our proof of mattering, who am I when I'm unseen? Online, it feels like being seen is the same thing as being real. Likes, saves, views, little mirrors that say you exist. If attention is the measurement, what happens to the parts of me that the feed can't see?
You're describing how attention gets wired into identity. In social neuroscience, being positively recognized lights up reward circuits, especially the ventral striatum and nucleus accumbens. That's why a burst of likes can feel like a micro hit of I matter. Two forces amplify this: social salience and reflected self. Our self-concept updates based on what we believe others see in us, reflected appraisals. In feeds, metrics are a loud proxy for approval. Algorithmic reinforcement. Platforms rank what draws attention. The more a post is engaged with, the more people see it. That creates a loop. Attention, amplification, identity performance tuned to what works. At classic social comparison, we check where we stand, and context collapse. One post to many audiences at once, and you get the performance pressure cooker. The risk: we outsource what matters to what's measurable.
So the mirror learns me, and I start learning the mirror back. Maybe myself becomes the profile that survives the scroll.
There's also a body-mind angle. When attention dips, many people feel a subtle threat signal. Sociometer theory frames self-esteem as an internal gauge of social inclusion. Drops in perceived belonging nudge emotions like anxiety or shame, essentially move toward the tribe. Neuroimaging work shows social rejection overlaps with pain circuitry. Anterior cingulate again. That's why silence from the feed can sting, even when nothing bad happened. The danger is mattering becoming metricized. We confuse measured visibility with intrinsic value. A healthier stance is: treat metrics as signals, not soul. Keep a parallel channel. Rituals that confirm worth of platform.
So the work is to choose what my attention proves. If I make seeing myself a ritual, maybe the feed stops being my only mirror.
Exactly. 3 recalibrations. Help, private first, public second. Generate identity signals offline. Journals, voice notes, trusted circles, before exposing them to algorithmic selection. Multiple mirrors. Diversify inputs. Art, nature, long-form reading, so your salience map isn't trained by a single ranking function. Meaning greater than metrics. Define success by process, craft, care, consistency, and by who is helped, not just how many. When attention comes, you're anchored. When it dips, you're intact.
Part 4. The mystical layer. Guiding question. Is the feed just showing me content, or is it revealing a cosmology? There's another way to see it. The feed isn't just a stack of posts, it's a mirror of the collective unconscious. When I scroll, I'm not just seeing memes or updates, I'm seeing what the collective is obsessing over. Its fears, its desires, its dreams. And sometimes it feels less like media and more like a living oracle.
That's a powerful lens. In systems theory, what you're describing is a feedback loop of human attention. Every like, pause, or share is a signal. And billions of signals aggregate into one constantly shifting stream. It resembles Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, archetypal patterns surfacing across individuals. Except here, the archetypes are mediated by algorithms. The meme, the viral sound, the aesthetic wave, they spread because the system detects resonance and amplifies it. This creates a paradox. The feed reflects us, but it also trains us. It's a mirror and a sculptor. Cognitive scientists call this a coupled system. We shape the feed, and the feed shapes us back. Over time, this reciprocity can feel uncanny, like the feed knows you better than you know yourself. That's why it sometimes feels prophetic, even mystical.
So maybe the feed isn't just teaching me what matters. Maybe it's teaching me what reality is. If my daily scroll is an oracle, then attention itself is the offering. Every pause, every like, it's a ritual exchange. I give energy to the stream, and the stream gives me its vision of the world.
And here's the mystical danger. If the feed becomes your only oracle, its cosmology becomes your reality. Psychologists call this the availability heuristic. We judge what's common or true by what's most easily recalled. In a feed-driven life, what's most visible starts to feel most real. At scale, this creates what some media theorists call attention ecologies. Entire societies organized around what the feed spotlights. But here's the opportunity. If you approach the feed consciously, as you might approach tarot, I Ching, or scripture, it can become symbolic instead of prescriptive. The ritual shifts from, what does the feed want me to believe, to, what symbols is the feed surfacing that I can interpret in my own way? That's how you reclaim sovereignty inside the oracle.
So the feed is not just content, it's cosmology, co-authored by us and the machine, and every scroll is a chance to decide, am I being written into its story, or am I interpreting its story for myself? Part 5. Reflection and reclaiming attention. Guiding question, if my attention is being trained, how do I train it back? But of course there's a cost. Every time I check a feed, it leaves traces, like fingerprints on glass. Researchers call this attention residue, little fragments of distraction that hang on even after I switch tasks. My focus feels scattered, my clarity blurred. So the question becomes, if my attention is being trained, how do I train it back?
You're right about attention residue. Studies by Sophie Leroy, 2009, show that when people switch between tasks, they carry a cognitive drag from the previous one. It reduces working memory, slows performance, and keeps the mind partially tethered to what it just left behind. Social media amplifies this effect because it fragments attention constantly. Even the presence of a phone nearby, not in use, just visible, were shown in Ward et al., 2017, to reduce cognitive capacity. The brain allocates effort to resisting it, leaving fewer resources for the present moment. That's why attention isn't just a private state. It's an ecology you cultivate. Every cue, every ritual, every device in sight shapes how your salience network fires.
So maybe reclaiming attention isn't about quitting the feed altogether. It's about creating counter rituals. I've started making space where my attention is mine first, journaling before scrolling so my thoughts are seated by me, not the stream. Treating the feed like tarot, scrolling with a question, interpreting symbols, not just absorbing. Asking myself, is this thought a reflection of me or just residue from the feed? Little rituals that help me remember I'm not just a consumer, I'm a participant in where my focus goes.
Exactly. Reclaiming attention isn't about withdrawal. It's about sovereignty. A few strategies science supports. Attentional priming. Begin your day by priming the brain with self-chosen inputs. Writing, affirmations, music. This establishes a baseline before the feed injects its salience. Single task sanctuaries. Protect blocks of time with no switching. Even short intervals of deep focus improve flow and lower stress hormones. Design your own rituals. Rituals anchor salience. If checking feeds has become a default ritual, create replacements, lighting a candle before journaling, or setting an intention before opening an app. Reframe metrics as signals, not so. The number isn't who you are, it's just a feedback point. Anchor identity elsewhere. In your process, your values, your chosen mirrors. The bigger truth? Attention is not just something you have, it's something you shape. And every act of reclaiming it is a way of writing your own cosmology back into the stream.
Attention is both currency and compass. It tells me who I am becoming. Every scroll is a seed, every thought is a ripple. Maybe not all of them are mine, but in the act of choosing where I place my attention, I can reclaim what it means to matter. In conclusion, my guiding question, if attention is sacred, how do we honor it? So here we are. We've traced attention through the science of salience, through the rituals of scrolling, through the mirrors of identity, and into the oracle of the feed. And what I keep circling back to is this. Attention is not just what I give away, it's what I become. Every pause, every glance, every scroll, it's training me, which means every choice of focus is also a chance to reclaim myself.
Attention is often called the currency of the digital age, but neuroscience suggests it's more than currency. It's also the foundation of consciousness itself. Cognitive scientists describe attention as the bottleneck of the mind, the narrow channel that decides which signals enter awareness. Whatever passes through that channel shapes memory, emotion, and ultimately, identity. Philosophers like William James said it a century ago. My experience is what I agree to attend to. So when you treat attention as sacred, whether by ritual, reflection, or simply choosing where you look, you're not just resisting the feed. You're actively writing the story of who you are.
Maybe that's the real algorithm, the one inside me. Not just what the machine decides matters, but what I decide matters. And the question I want to leave you with is this. What trained your attention today? And where do you want it to lead you tomorrow? My hope is that this episode gave you a creative reframe for doom scrolling, a reminder that the same technology that hijacks our focus can also be redesigned, repurposed, even ritualized to serve curiosity instead of fear. Thanks for listening to this episode of Psyche in the Feed. Please subscribe, comment, and rate us.
See you again soon.
Your journey starts where silence reigns.